Right. My name is Trevor Marshall. I am a historian. Now, what does that mean? Honestly, historians research, teach, write. And I've done all three at community college and at University of the West Indies at Cave Hill. And I am, 72 years old. I think people do not trust us historians except when we tell nice little stories that anchor them within their comfort level and their comfort zone, right? If you say things that people don't like, for example, one of my babies is Nelson, Lord Nelson and his statue, and I've been for the last 30 or more years agitating for the removal of the statue. So, and the way people deal with me is say that, oh, he's distorting history. He's not telling the truth. He doesn't like Nelson. Because you find information which can you call it accurate or truth, accuracy or truth, or just congruent with reality? But whatever it is, historians report reality as the evidence indicates. Accuracy is what human beings are tending towards and fighting towards. Because look, you want to get an estimation, not an estimation, but an accurate statement of how far the moon is from here, so that you can create instruments and you can gauge how much fuel you need to get to the moon and back, how much time it will take. So if that is one of your guiding poles, you need accuracy in everything. Accuracy in establishing flagstones. How many? Well, 18 inches by 18 inches. How much cement you need when erecting a building, how much steel you need. And therefore, when it has to do with human activity, which is the field of history, you want to be as accurate as possible. Now, was Halley's Comet last seen in what, 1976? Yes. When will it come back? 2030 or something like that? Yes. You want accuracy like that. Now, in what year did Barbados become independent? Not 1967 or 1965, but 1966. So historians strive for accuracy. In our field, accuracy is an elusive concept because you might get the date right, the time wrong, and then there's a Chinese New Year, there's a Russian New Year, there's a system of numbering things which is germane to the Muslims, whatever. And names of people, names of places, and it's an entire potpourri of happenings. And you're dealing with the most changeable of elements in the universe, mankind. What did mankind say? What did President Kennedy say when he says, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country? And did he say that? Or did somebody write it for him? Or who was Jesus? Is the Bible accurate? Was there a man who lived on this earth 33 and had all the entire wisdom of the world summarized in his being, right? So many things. So for us, accuracy is that guiding star and that ultimate pole, and we strive towards it at all times, right? And most of history is inference, right? In that you get evidence, and evidence is something else. Evidence for historians is what is written down. It could be archaeological evidence as well, but mainly what is written down. And unless you get evidence which says this thing happened at this time for this purpose, you have to infer from the evidence that this is what happened. And men and women, when they wrote, did not write for you in the future to come and see and interpret what they're doing, and what they were doing at that time and why they did it. So we historians are guided by who, what, why, where, when. And Ultimately, we deal with the past, and the past for its own sake. And some people say the past to illuminate the present and guide us to the future. But some of us are just madly in love with the past and what people wore at the time, what they said, what they did. There was a time when people thought that black historians had a fetish about slavery, that all we could ever do is pursue documents which show how people were brutalized and starved and raped by the white man, etc., etc. And why would anybody want to study history, slavery? But why would anybody want to study shipping? Why would anybody want to study communism? Why would anybody want to study warfare? There are things about the past which grab you and hold you in their own slavery, and you cannot get enough of them. And that's what historians do. We research, we write, we teach, and we don't know why. Because some people say, in order to educate the present so that in the future you will not make the mistakes of the past. But that's foolishness. If there's one thing that mankind will do, is repeat the mistakes of the past, right? But so history is an exercise in masochism, self-inflicted hurt, pain, frustration, but we love it. Human beings are the ultimate in God's creation. They're made of fiber, muscle, bone, flesh, and then human beings are mammals, so they're male and female, and the female has eggs like other animals, but human beings are supposed to be higher order animals, in that most animals are dumb and use clicks and clacks and other songs to communicate. Human beings devise language. Human beings are not just developers of language, but they are creators of elements, which we call technology, anything to make labor activity easier and to make things move higher, faster, stronger, like cars, etc. So to repeat, human beings are the ultimate in God's creation, and not only do they have fiber and muscle, but they have souls. And this is what is surprising about human beings, that people believe that when human beings die, and remember all living things must die, that the soul does not die, the soul transmogrifies, that as the Egyptians believe that you are transported into being a cat or a mouse or a centipede, or you go back and you inhabit the soul or the body of somebody, perhaps a relative, an ancestor or something. But human beings, I think the greatest thing about human beings is that they come in all forms, short, squat, tall, lanky, rangy. And they come in all different colors, but not of the rainbow, but all shades from Nordic, from absolutely white, blonde, blue-eyed, and fair, jet black like the color of the brother's shirt here. And all human beings have capacity for hate, murder, sin, unfaithfulness, thievery, but human beings, most of all, are capable of extreme devotion and love. And this is why we epitomize like Jesus and Gandhi and Mother Teresa and the saints, female and male, because they are emblematic of the best in human beings, and where you give yourself, even become a martyr for other human beings that other human beings might live. And perhaps the summit of human existence is a young woman becoming pregnant and going into what I call the valley of the shadow of death in order to produce another human being, because many females die at the point of childbirth, etc. So that is the range of human beings, but it's not the extent because they're human beings. For example, one human being was convicted in New Zealand of cold-bloodedly killing 51 persons, just shooting them like if you were shooting rabbits. So there's good and there's evil in human beings, and I don't think that there's any animal, not even snakes, who can match the human being for wickedness, and there's nothing in God's creation that can match human beings for love, devotion, tenderness, etc. What is love? Love is supposed to be a chemical reaction which binds one human being to another. And we could generalize about love. Love of nature, and this is why I prefer to be photographed here, this greenery. Love of mankind, love of reading, love of books, love of sport. But when we talk about love, we think of that chemical bond between flesh and flesh. And it is greatly epitomized in love between a male and a female, which eventuates in marriage in all societies, and with the understanding that the two people produce another human being. Not far from that kind of love, and that is erotic love. Erotic love in which human beings see a combination of form and substance and shape to which they're attracted, and they call it love. It might be venal, which is just purely physical, or it might be ethereal, which is just like saint-like love, but it is for another human being. And we think that the greatest love in the world is a mother for her child, or parents for their children. And that is, second only to, people say second only to the love that lovers, sexual mates have for one another. But I tend to think that the love of parents for their children is greater. Now there is love without reasoning. There is tough love, and most children in my age time were recipients of tough love, in which your mother would say, the blows first, an explanation afterwards, and you got beaten with any and everything for the merest infraction of rules, but they were toughening you up, so they said. Or there is indulgent love, where parents give children everything they want and allow children to rule them, and they excuse and explain it by saying that he's mine, I push you out, or she's mine and I love her. So love comes in all kinds of forms, and there's no reasoning about love. For example, I've yet to come to terms with the fact that a woman lawyer will find that her client is a mass murderer, and over a period of a year, while preparing him for his trial, she falls in love with him. Now, how can you wrap your head around that? Because love tends to see the object of affection as wonderful, the best example of the other gender or whatever. And the thought about gender leads us to the point that human beings are not just one gender. There's LGBTQ, and therefore love can be of same sex, right? We used to call it homosexuality and lesbianism. Now it is same gender, and we have transgender love, etc. So like the human beings, the human population, love is like the rainbow. It comes in all kinds of colors and shapes, and love can mean so many different things. Right now, I would love a saltfish cutter. Caribbean people are unique in almost every sense of the word, except that they are human beings. They're recognizably human beings. Now, we are a rainbow people. Caribbean people are yellow, as in Chinese, brown, as in Latino, mulatto, as in a cross between um, white and black. Um, the old-time word for black was Negro, and you had uh, so many variations of black: cob skin, red skin, brown skin, light skin, sambo, and ace of spades, meaning black, 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 colored, etc. Caribbean people are defined by, I think that the fact that they relate to life and nature with a lot of movement. Caribbean people move every part of their bodies, and in gesturing, in speaking, and not only in terms of the everyday activities, walking. You can tell a Caribbean person, the very sway and swing. Caribbean men walk with a swagger as though they own the earth. Caribbean women walk and swing their hips as though they would bump you out of the out of this space if you don't move around. They're very proud of their bodies, and they show pride. Caribbean people tend to be athletic looking, uh, but they can also be quite obese. But most of all, Caribbean people love to be loud. And that goes without saying. You can best find them at the games, cricket in particular, cricket, but in the villages, village life in the Caribbean is not life without noise, and noise of laughter, noise of children being beaten, of children playing, of women quarreling, not only with their men folk but with themselves. And Caribbean people are colorful. Caribbean people love color. Uh, Other people tend to love, in terms of dress, other people like to wear pastel colors. Caribbean people love brilliant reds, greens, blues, oranges. And this is best seen in their carnival and other their other festivities and festivals, right? And remember that Caribbean people make noise in their festivals, whether it is tassa drumming of the Indians, the Hindus, or whether it is the steel pan of black Caribbean people, right? And Caribbean people are also known to be polyglot. That is, they are multilingual, either in terms of dialect, mesolect, and they speak dialects of Dutch, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. Whether they speak in these dialects or they try to speak English, Oxford uh, uh, University English, or whether they speak a melange of, of these languages. And Caribbean people also are addicted to rum. Wherever you go in the Caribbean, there must be alcohol, because, after all, the Caribbean is where rum was invented, actually in Barbados. And Caribbean people, for the past 340 years, have been squeezing rum from sugarcane, and everything about the Caribbean speaks of alcohol, the tang of alcohol, the sweetness of sugar, and and the ultimate in Caribbeanness is the ability to argue, all right, about all kinds of everything, right? And also, second only to that, is the ability to dress up. Caribbean people are known everywhere for being able to dress up like ancient Indians, ancient Jews, Chinese, Romans, everything. Not only on their carnivals, but Caribbean people, you will find a Caribbean man in a 90-degree heat wearing a three-piece suit, as in England or the continent. And Caribbean people are known for their broad-mindedness. They're easily adaptable to any idea coming around. And ultimately, Caribbean people are unfailingly religious. When you speak about the Caribbean, you speak about the connection between ancestors, the present generation, and the children to come. So Caribbean people believe in spirits, in obia persons, in werewolves, right? And in uh, things that emanate from cemeteries. We believe in duppies. We believe in spirits coming and writing you and talking to you, and that your dead parents talk to you, and therefore, and we also believe in voodoo, uh, obia, uh, the Rada religion, Baptists, spiritual Baptists, and Caribbean people are musical. Caribbean people sing and play zouk in the French cultured Leeward Islands, St. Lucia, Dominica, etc. Caribbean people sing and play calypso in Trinidad, in Barbados and Antigua. Caribbean people sing and dance to and play reggae, rocksteady, skank, dance hall in Jamaica. In Belize, they play punta, which is a form of calypso. And in Guyana, they play all kinds of music. That is a Caribbean person. And we cannot say that that is the sum total of being a Caribbean person. Because when you go out of the Caribbean, you go to New York, you go to Canada, you go to America, to England, you want Caribbean food. Caribbean food is spicy. Curry goat, curry chicken, roti, which betrays our Indian heritage. Caribbean food, Jamaican food, escovitch fish, mannish water, barbecue chicken, uh, barbecue pork, um, which is which is roasted over particular logs, etc. In every Caribbean island, there is a separate kind of dish, and when you put them all together, a callaloo, a total melange of sweet tasting, spicy food. Our spiritual beliefs come from the matrices from which Caribbean people emanate. First of all, there are Caribs and Arawaks. Today we call them Kalinago and Taino, who also believe in ancestor worship and the presence of the ancestors. And that system of belief has remained with us from the time of before Columbus. And then the Caribbean, as we know, is an area of migration. In migration, people came to the Caribbean from India, Africa, Syria, Lebanon, China, England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Holland, Portugal, Spain, and not only Africans, but Europeans as well had their ideas of the European notion of the afterlife as a ghost, the person who comes from the afterlife and haunts you. For us of African derivation and ancestry, that ghost is a duppy. That ghost is a spirit. And for the people who have East Indian heritage, the many manifestations of Ram or Krishna, all right, and also from Mohammedans or Muslims, there's the notion that the spirit of Muhammad will wreak vengeance on you. For Indians who are Hindus, there's the idea of nirvana, which is an afterlife which is just absolutely beautiful, which is the equivalent of heaven. And in every religion, there is a system of rewards and punishments. Rewards for living a good life, you get to go to heaven. And heaven is in the Christian commune. Joining the ancestors is the African equivalent of heaven. Catholics believe in heaven, Anglicans believe in heaven, Indians believe in nirvana, the Chinese believe in going back to the ancestors. So there is a system of ancestor worship. You know, in answer to your question, where from do these beliefs come? People brought to the Caribbean their ideas of 3 stages of development: birth, your life, and then the afterlife, joining your ancestors. And these beliefs have survived. They have survived slavery, colonialism, punishment, banning in the Caribbean. And people still believe in Obia. People still believe in spiritual Baptist religion. People still are revivalists, clap hand, foot stomp religion. The Hindus in the Caribbean subscribe to 1,280 gods. The Muslims and the Jews differ in their worship of a single God, Yahweh or Allah. But we all believe that retribution will follow you not only in the afterlife, but in this life. So people, when you do someone something, people say, I leave you to God. Or when I was growing up and you as a black person infuriated the East Indian itinerant trader by not paying him according to the buy now, pay later plan, he will set the baku on you. And we have stories in song and in prose about little men in people's bellies, which spoke, or people suddenly developing plagues, which were punishment for having sinned or committed misdeeds against your fellow man. So we do have a fairly extensive system of belief in the afterlife and manifestations of the afterlife and rewards for bad deeds in this world. We are able within the Christian communion or community in the Caribbean to inject aspects of African spirit worship and ancestor worship, beginning with children. Children in the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, go through the ritual of the 7 sacraments of the Christian belief. Baptism at birth, water baptism, catechism, communion, marriage, Christian marriage, baptism of our children, extreme unction when you're dying, and holy burial in consecrated cemeteries. And yet, in some places in the Caribbean, we bury our people under the church, under the house, so that the spirit, the ancestral spirit, inheres in the house, and the loved one is gone but not departed. And we are able to introduce our children to Rada and Obia and Shango, and we train them to beat drums, we even induct them into spirit possession, getting in the spirit and speaking in tongues. And all that is not seen as being outlandish or extremely strange. In fact, there are some people in the Eastern Caribbean who would tell me to warningly, you'll be very careful how you talk about our religious practices, because they are as enchanting and as legitimate as you're signing the cross, making the sign of the cross and bowing and kneeling, genuflecting to Jesus. So we are, as in terms of folk religion, and that is folk religion, where the practices come up from the folk, from the people, clapping hands, stamping feet, beating drums, beating cymbals, etc. Not high mass as in European cathedrals, etc., but the religion of the folk. We are able within our folk religion to swing from African to Christian in a very smart and seamless way. Why? Because during slavery Africans were not allowed to practice their religion. In fact, they were not even considered to have any souls worthy of being saved, and yet their religions were banned. So they lived in a halfway house on no man's land of not being Christian and not being fully African. So after emancipation, when they were inducted into the Christian religion, they carried with them their African practices of Obia, Shango, Rada, Kumena, Komfa, etc., and mixed them with Christianity. So we have a fantastic melange which still agitates and excites persons from the world, from the European world, who come and study Caribbean folk religion, right? Not only in Haiti, where the concept of the zombie still excites people, but also in staid Barbados. One thing I must mention is that in relation to mortuary and funeral practices, when I was growing up, we would have a system of the person being dead would be laid in state in the drawing room, and people would come, just as how we like people in state, and you go to a funeral home and you watch them, you would do that in the best room in the house. And you would take a child and pass it over the coffin, right? So it inherits the spirit of that dead person, and you're passing it from here to there, so that it does not die with the person here, but it carries on the spirit over there. And then you would cook all kinds of meats, and you would, of course, drink rum. Now, in today's world, you find that men go to a funeral, and by the way, you call that the wake. Today, men go to a funeral, and while the women are inside the church singing and going through the ritual, the men are outside at the rum shop, and when they open the bottle, they throw the first glass into the earth. Why? To include the ancestors in the rum drinking exercise, and then they begin to drink. And so we do that. And with regard to the wake, now the wake, some people argue, is a Christian practice where the body lies in state for a few days before you bury it, and you go around it in a circle, and you talk about how good the person was during life, and you eat and drink and you sing. And in some parts of the Caribbean, that goes on for 9 nights. So you call it a 9-night festival, or in Jamaica, the 9 nights. And then you bury the person on the 10th or the 9th day. Now, we don't do that. We have a reception where you gather after the funeral, and you drink rum and other spirituous liquors, and you have cake, etc. So we are modernized, but it is still the idea of keeping in touch with the ancestors and giving the departed person a good send-off. We Caribbean people are narrow people, not just narrow-minded, but we are bounded by the islands and that landmass in which we live, which means that if you are Montserratan, you are bounded by the fact that Montserrat is 39 square miles, which is the size of St. Philip and Christchurch, all right? Barbadians tend to think that we are big, but you only get a sense of size when you go to Jamaica. And Jamaica is considered a small island. Haiti is a small part of the Hispaniola. Cuba is the only large island in the Caribbean, the large landmass. Trinidad is also not, Trinidad is about 1/10 the size of Cuba. We are about 1/20 of the size of Trinidad. Jamaica is 27 times bigger than Barbados. St. Lucia is bigger than Barbados, Dominica. And yet, we Barbadian people consider St. Lucia and Dominica as small islands and low islands. So there is a sense that being a resident or native of a small island has its negative and positive aspects. I began with the negative. we see whatever we are and whatever we do as being the best in the world or the only. All of us have just what the mighty Chalkness calls seawater and sand. And yet, we believe that our tourism product is the best in the world. Not just the best in the world, the only one in the world, the only one in the Caribbean. So all of us, from Antigua to Tobago, tell the tourists, come to our island. It is only here that you will find the authentic Caribbean. We have the best sunset, the most beautiful turquoise blue, etc., etc. And yet all of us have the same. You are limited because you are exposed only to what? The village, or the district, or the parish, and then the island. And your concept of other people is that they are somehow inferior to you because they don't inhabit this particular space. Yet in reality, small island people have their own charm. Each of them has their own dialect, and they do things differently, and yet they melt and merge when they go overseas. When small island people leave here and go into what we call the diaspora, or the megalopolis, London, Montreal, Toronto, New York, they cling to one another. And then they resent people calling them small island people. We are Caribbean people. All of a sudden we are one mass. But we go to, in Jamaica, we go to, in New York, we go to a Jamaican cafe and we eat jerk or barbecue chicken, or jerk pork, escovitch fish. We go to a Trinidadian place and we eat roti and chana, peas, lentils, etc. Or we go to a Barbadian place and we eat flying fish and cuckoo, etc. So the concept of being a small islander disappears when we are outside the region. But while you're here, it is a defense mechanism. I say so because if you were to just accept other people just like that and recognize their strengths relative to yours, well, then you'd get an idea that really and truly that your island is just an atom, a little fly in the universe, and that you come from nothing. And no small island person in the Caribbean believes that he or she or their island comes from nothing. We are big. We are big. We punch above our weight. And the first person with whom we compare ourselves is our neighbor. And our neighbor cannot be as good as we, because by reason of being Barbadian or Jamaican or whatever, we are superior. So, as with everything else, there is negative and positive in being a small island person, although basically we normally see just the negative. Now, one development has fought against that idea of small island exclusivism, and that is the University of the West Indies. If you pass through the portals of the University of the West Indies, whether at Mona Campus, Jamaica, St. Augustine, Trinidad, or Cape Verde, Barbados, you are going to meet people from Belize, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, Tortola, Virgin Islands, Antigua, St. Kitts, Montserrat, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, Tobago, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana. You are going to be amazed by the melange of dialects and the terms being used for the same thing. You're going to realize that we share a love of calypso and cricket, and that we are all noisy people, that we have folk religious practices which are the same, and you get to understand the charm of these small geographical units. And when I say geographical, every Caribbean island, however small, has its unique beauty. I mean, I'm constantly told by my Barbadian fellow citizens, Barbados is an extremely beautiful island. And then you hear it is the gem of the Caribbean. And I think that these people have not seen St. Lucia. They have not seen Dominica. They have not seen Jamaica. Barbados does not have rivers and mountains. Right. But it's beautiful. And I think that that is one of the problems that we have to overcome. Believing that the seawater and sand that we have, and the little geographical space, and the varieties of shades of green, that is the summit and the ultimate in beauty and God's creation. What does the future hold for mankind? What does the future hold for womankind? What does the future hold for Barbados? What does the future hold for our children? For mankind, the future is going to be one of wars, killing, starvation, pestilence. I think people who are adherents of the Bible all say that these are the last days, and God coming free world, and look in Deuteronomy, and look in Revelations, and you see how God said that China will arise and beat the United States and Russia, etc. So one does not have to be a wild-eyed, rabid religionist to believe that world conflict, world pestilence, wars, rumors of wars are in our future. Nationalism, conflicts between people and nations over geographical units, control of the sea around us, these will be problems, and people always tend to have issue with peaceful resolution of their problems. They must have guns and other forms of mutilating or obliterating people in order to settle their differences. Now, what will the future hold for mankind versus womankind, men versus women? I think that the 21st century is the future of the century of women. We see it in our country, Barbados, where 25 years ago there was the women's movement, women's liberation. Now women have in Barbados 70% of all the positions of influence and strength, and it will soon be 80 and 90. Men will, in Barbados will become, in the old-time terms, drones. Already you see every school principal is a woman. Every permanent secretary is a woman, governor general woman, prime minister. And one does not say this with any degree of animosity, but it is going to happen in all other parts of the world. In the Caribbean, there are women who are not, if not prime ministers, leaders of the opposition, governors general, presidents, etc. And women are being educated faster than men, partly as a matter of chance and a matter of choice. And we're going to see, I'm sorry to predict, but we're going to see the retreat of men. Men are going to be the inferior and the second sex in this 21st century. Now, children, I would not want to be a child in this world. It is not as simple. There is far more technological equipment at hand for children to employ, whether in play or earning money or whatever. But the quality of life that children we see suffering, enduring now. I come from a time when life was simple, when children could be children, when girls were not subject to rape as much as today, when boys were not subject to men raping them, when the society looked after its children. And whether you're in Barbados or in Jamaica or something, there is so much poverty and desolation and naked persecution and exploitation of children. I mean, whenever you turn on television and you see naked, hungry, exploited children, you turn off. You turn to a channel, another channel. But that, unfortunately, is the lesson of the future. Children, for example, Mexican children are on the border in the United States in a holding pen, bereft of their families. Some children at the level of nursing from their mother's breast, etc. And children will have to fight their way in this world, whether it is in Hollywood or whether it is in a hovel. And there are not enough schools for children. There are not enough social welfare and child care facilities for children. And it is a horrific spectacle what the world will hold for children. In a sense, we are going back to the law of the jungle, that the strongest and the fittest survive, and that people who can sell themselves, their bodies, their souls, anything that you can sell makes you marked out for success in this world. In a sense, and that is being pessimistic, but on the more optimistic side, there's the human soul. Human beings will strive in the future for greater control of their lives, of medicine, of space, of movement, and in a sense, you look to Revelation and you say world without end. Because anyone hearing me will say, well, as a historian, you must have come across what? The Black Death, when children died like rats. The bubonic plague. Look, slavery has been eliminated. No, it has not been, but it was in its cruel form for black people. That's a thing of the past. There was a child at the point when women were denied just the situation of wearing whatever clothes they could, going to school, having higher education, becoming doctors, lawyers. Women can be anything they want in the world today, except Muslim women. Muslim women are still in a situation of slavery. I think that wherever they go, they have to have their heads covered. And you ask, well, if God wanted you to have your head covered, why didn't he make you bald? But they're still controlled by their men. So if I am arguing in a circle, it is that the world is as it has always been, a melange of good, bad, ugly, promise, regression, 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward. There's a film, Back to the Future. We go back to the past and we repeat a lot of the things which happened in the past. And you say, well, this can't be happening because we passed that stage. But you have dictators. You have people who try to limit the freedom of other people. As I said, you have wars. You have mutilation of people. You have rape. You have murder. You have spoliation of children. All of these happened in the past. And for every step we take forward, we take a step backward. Mankind, however, will in future control the seas. Mankind will control how we eat and what we eat. But there will be famines. Mankind in future will try to control the seasons, storms, hurricanes, etc. But there will be cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes, etc. So the future will be as the past has been.